The Pharsalia by Lucan. Book 5. The Oracle, the Mutiny, the Storm. Thus had the smiles of Fortune and her frowns brought either chief to Macedonian shores still equal to his foe. From cooler skies sank Atlas's daughters down, and Haemus' slopes were white with winter, and the day drew nigh devoted to the god who leads the months, and marking with new names the book of Rome, when came the fathers from their distant posts by both the consuls to Epirus called, ere yet the year was dead. A foreign land obscure received the magistrates of Rome, and heard their high debate. No warlike camp this, for the consuls and the praetors' acts proclaimed the senate house, and Magnus sat, one among many, and the state was all. When all were silent, from his lofty seat thus Lentulus began, while stern and sad the fathers listened. If your hearts still beat with Latian blood, and if within your breasts still lives your father's vigor, look not now on this strange land that holds us, nor inquire your distance from the captured city. Yours this proud assembly, yours the high command in all that comes. Be this your first decree, whose truth all peoples and all kings confess. Be this the Senate. Let the frozen wain demand your presence, or the torrid zone, wherein the day and night with equal tread forever march. Still follows in your steps the central power of imperial Rome. When flamed the Capitol with fires of Gaul, when Veii held Camillus, there with him was Rome, nor ever, though it changed its clime, your order lost its rights. In Caesar's hands are sorrowing houses and deserted homes, laws silent for a space, and forums closed in public fast. His senate house beholds those fathers only whom from Rome it drove while Rome was full. Of that high order all, not here, are exiles. Ignorant of war, its crimes and bloodshed, through long years of peace, ye fled its outburst. Now in session all are here assembled. See ye how the gods weigh down Italia's loss by all the world thrown in the other scale? Illyria's wave rolls deep upon our foes. In Libyan wastes is fallen their Curio, the weightier part of Caesar's senate. Lift your standards then, spur on your fates, and prove your hopes to heaven. Let fortune, smiling, give you courage now, as, when ye fled, your cause. The consul's power fails with the dying year. Not so does yours. By your commandment for the common weal, decree Pompeius leader. With applause they heard his words, and placed their country's fates, nor less their own, within the chieftain's hands. Then did they shower on people and on kings honors well earned. Rhodes, mistress of the seas, was decked with gifts. Athena, old in fame, received her praise, and the rude tribes who dwell on cold Taygetus. Massilia's sons, their own Phocaea's freedom. On the chiefs of Thracian tribes fit honors were bestowed. They order Libya by their high decree to serve King Juba's scepter. And, alas, on Ptolemaeus, of a faithless race, the faithless sovereign, scandal to the gods, and shame to fortune, place the diadem of Pella. Boy, thy sword was only sharp against thy people. Ah, if that were all! The fatal gift gave, too, Pompeius's life, bereft thy sister of her sire's bequest, half of the kingdom, Caesar of a crime. Then, all to arms. While soldier thus in chief, in doubtful sort, against their hidden fate devised their counsel, Appius alone feared for the chances of the war, and sought through Phoebus' ancient oracle to break the silence of the gods, and know the end. Between the western belt and that which bounds the furthest east, midway Parnassus rears his double summit, to the Bromian god and Paean consecrate, to whom conjoined the Theban band leads up the Delphic feast on each third year. this mountain, when the sea poured o'er the earth her billows, rose alone, by one high peak scarce master of the waves, parting the crest of waters from the stars. There, to avenge his mother from her home, chased by the angered goddess, while as yet she bore him quick within her, Paean came, when Themis ruled the tripods and the spot, and with unpractised darts the Python slew. But when he saw how from the yawning cave a godlike knowledge breathed, and all the air was full of voices murmured from the depths, he took the shrine and filled the deep recess, henceforth to prophesy. Which of the gods has left heaven's light in this dark cave to hide? What spirit that knows the secrets of the world and things to come here condescends to dwell, divine, omnipotent? Bear the touch of man, and at his bidding deigns to lift the veil. Perchance he sings the fates, perchance his song once sung is fate. Haply some part of Jove, sent here to rule the earth with mystic power, balanced upon the void immense of air, sounds through the caves, and in its flight returns to that high home of thunder whence it came. Caught in a virgin's breast, this deity strikes on the human spirit. Then a voice sounds from her breast, as when the lofty peak of Etna boils, forced by compelling flames, or as Typhoeus on Campania's shore frets 'neath the pile of huge Anarime. Though free to all that ask, denied to none, no human passion lurks within the voice that heralds forth the god. No whispered vow, no evil prayer prevails, none favor gain. Of things unchangeable the song divine. Yet loves the just. When men have left their homes to seek another, it hath turned their steps aright, as with the Tyrians, and raised the hearts of nations to confront their foe, as proved the waves of Salamis. When earth hath been unfruitful, or polluted air hath plagued mankind, this utterance benign hath raised their hopes and pointed to the end. No gift from heaven's high God so great as this our centuries have lost, since Delphi's shrine has silent stood, and kings forbade the gods to speak the future, fearing for their fates. Nor does the priestess sorrow that the voice is heard no longer, and the silent fane to her is happiness. For whatever breast contains the deity, its shattered frame surges with frenzy, and the soul divine shakes the frail breath that with the god receives, as prize or punishment, untimely death. These tripods Appius seeks, unmoved for years, these soundless cavern rocks, in quest to learn Hesperia's destinies. At his command, to loose the sacred gateways and permit the prophetess to enter to the god, the keeper calls Phaemonoe, whose steps round the Castalian fount and in the grove were wandering careless. Her he bids to pass the portals, but the priestess feared to tread the awful threshold, and with vain deceit sought to dissuade the chieftain from his zeal to learn the future. "What this hope," she cried, "Roman, that moves thy breast to know the fates? Long has Parnassus in its silent cleft stifled the god. Perhaps the breath divine has left its ancient gorge, and thro' the world wanders in devious paths. Or else the fane, consumed to ashes by barbarian fire, closed up the deep recess and choked the path of Phoebus. Or the ancient Sibyl's books disclosed enough of fate, and thus the gods decreed to close the oracle. Or else, since wicked steps are banished from the fane, in this our impious age the god finds none whom he may answer." But the maiden's guile was known, for though she would deny the gods, her fears approved them. On her front she binds a twisted fillet, while a shining wreath of Phocian laurels crowns the locks that flow upon her shoulders. Hesitating, yet the priest compelled her, and she passed within. But horror filled her of the holiest depths from which the mystic oracle proceeds, and resting near the doors, in breast unmoved, she dares invent the god in words confused, which prove no mind possessed with fire divine, by such false chant less injuring the chief than faith in Phoebus and the sacred fane. No burst of words with tremor in their tones, no voice re-echoing through the spacious vault proclaimed the deity, no bristling locks shook off the laurel chaplet, but the grove unshaken, and the summits of the shrine gave proof she shunned the god. The Roman knew the tripods yet were idle, and in rage, "Wretch!" he exclaimed, "to us and to the gods, whose presence thou pretendest, thou shalt pay for this thy fraud the punishment, unless thou enter the recess and speak no more of this world war, this tumult of mankind, thine own inventions." Then, by fear compelled, at length the priestess sought the furthest depths, and stayed beside the tripods. And there came into her unaccustomed breast the god, breathed from the living rocks for centuries untouched. Nor ever with a mightier power did Paeon's inspiration seize the frame of Delphic priestess. His pervading touch drove out her former mind, expelled the man, and made her wholly his. In maddened trance she whirls throughout the cave, her locks erect with horror, and the fillets of the god dashed to the ground. Her steps unguided turn to this way and to that. The tripods fall overturned. Within her seethes the mighty fire of angry Phoebus. Nor with whip alone he urged her onwards, but with curb restrained. Nor was it given her by the god to speak all that she knew, for into one vast mass all time was gathered, and her panting chest groaned 'neath the centuries. In order long all things lay bare, the future yet unveiled struggled for light. Each fate required a voice, the compass of the seas, creation's birth, creation's death, the number of the sands. All these she knew. Thus, on a former day, the prophetess upon the Cumaean shore, disdaining that her frenzy should be slave to other nations, from the boundless threads chose out with pride of hand the fates of Rome. E'en so Philomele, for a time oppressed with fates unnumbered, labored ere she found, beneath such mighty destinies concealed, thine, Appius, who alone hadst sought the god in land Castalian. Then from foaming lips first rushed the madness forth, and murmurs loud uttered with panting breath, and blent with groans, till through the spacious vault a voice at length broke from the virgin conquered by the god. "From this great struggle thou, O Roman free, escapest the threat of war. Alive, in peace, thou shalt possess the hollow in the coast of vast Euboea." Thus she spake, no more. Ye mystic tripods, guardians of the fates and Paeon, thou from whom no day is hid by heaven's high rulers, master of the truth, why fear'st thou to reveal the deaths of kings, Rome's murdered princes, and the latest doom of her great empire tottering to its fall, and all the bloodshed of that western land? Were yet the stars in doubt on Magnus' fate, not yet decreed? And did the gods yet shrink from that, the greatest crime? Or wert thou dumb, that Fortune's sword for civil strike might wreak just vengeance, and a Brutus' arm once more strike down the tyrant? From the temple doors rushed forth the prophetess in frenzy driven, not all her knowledge uttered, and her eyes, still troubled by the god who reigned within, or filled with wild affright, or fired with rage, gaze on the wild expanse. Still works her face convulsive, on her cheeks a crimson blush with ghastly pallor blent, though not of fear. Her weary heart throbs ever, and as seas boom swollen by northern winds, she finds in sighs, all inarticulate, relief. But while she hastes from that dread light in which she saw the fates to common day, lo, on her path the darkness fell. Then by a Stygian draught of the forgetful river Phoebus snatched back from her soul her secrets, and she fell, yet hardly living. Nor did Appius dread approaching death, but by dark oracles baffled, while yet the empire of the world hung in the balance, sought his promised realm in Chalcis of Euboea. Yet to escape all ills of earth, the crash of war, what god can give thee such a boon but death alone? Far on the solitary shore a grave awaits thee, where Charybdis' marble crags draw in the passage of the sea, and where the fane of Rhamnus rises to the gods who hate the proud, and where the ocean strait boils in swift whirlpools, and Euripus draws deceitful in his tides, a bane to ships, Chalcidian vessels to bleak Aulis' shore. But Caesar carried from the conquered west his eagles to another world of war, when envying his victorious course the gods almost turned back the prosperous tide of fate. Not on the battlefield borne down by arms, but in his tents within the rampart lines, the hoped-for prize of this unholy war seemed for a moment gone. That faithful host his comrades trusted in 100 fields, or that the falchion sheath had lost its charm, or weary of the mournful bugle call scarce ever silent, or replete with blood, well nigh betrayed their general, and sold for hope of gain their honor and their cause. No other perilous shock gave surer proof how trembled 'neath his feet the dizzy height from which great Caesar looked. A moment since, his high behest drew nations to the field. Now, maimed of all, he sees that swords once drawn are weapons for the soldier, not the chief. From the stern ranks no doubtful murmur rose, not silent anger, as when one conspires, his comrades doubting, feared himself in turn. Alone, he thinks, indignant at the wrongs wrought by the despot. In so great a host, dread found no place. Where thousands share the guilt, crime goes unpunished. Thus from dauntless throats they hurled their menace. Caesar, give us leave to quit thy crimes. Thou seek'st by land and sea the sword to slay us. Let the fields of Gaul and far Iberia and the world proclaim how for thy victories our comrades fell. What boots it us that by an army's blood the Rhine and Rhone and all the northern lands thou hast subdued? Thou givest us civil war for all these battles, such the prize. When fled the Senate trembling, and when Rome was ours, what homes or temples did we spoil? Our hands reek with offense. Aye, but our poverty proclaims our innocence. What end shall be of arms and armies? What shall be enough if Rome suffice not? And what lies beyond? Behold these silvered locks, these nerveless hands and shrunken arms, once stalwart. In thy wars gone is the strength of life, gone all its pride. Dismiss thine aged soldiers to their deaths. How shameless is our prayer! Not on hard turf to stretch our dying limbs, nor seek in vain, when parts the soul, a hand to close our eyes. Not with the helmet strike the stony clod, rather to feel the dear one's last embrace, and gain a humble but a separate tomb. Let nature end old age. And dost thou think we only know not what degree of crime will fetch the highest price? What thou canst dare these years have proved, or nothing. Law divine nor human ordinance shall hold thine hand. Thou wert our leader on the banks of Rhine. Henceforth our equal, for the stain of crime makes all men like to like. Add that we serve a thankless chief. As fortune's gift he takes the fruits of victory our arms have won. We are his fortunes, and his fates are ours to fashion as we will. Boast that the gods shall do thy bidding. Nay, thy soldiers' will shall close the war. With threatening mien and speech, thus through the camp the troops demand their chief. When faith and loyalty are fled, and hope for aught but evil, thus may civil war and mutiny and discord find its end. What general had not feared at such revolt? But mighty Caesar, trusting on the throw, as was his wont, his fortune, and o'erjoyed to front their anger raging at its height, unflinching comes. No temples of the gods, not Jove's high fane on the Tarpeian rock, not Rome's high dames, nor maidens had he grudged to their most savage lust. But they should ask the worst, his wish, and love the spoils of war. Nor feared he aught save order at the hands of that unconquered host. Art thou not shamed that strife should please thee only, now condemned even by thy minions? Shall they shrink from blood, they from the sword recoil, and thou rush on, heedless of guilt, through right and through unright, nor learn that men may lay their arms aside, yet bear to live? This civil butchery escapes thy grasp. Stay thou thy crimes at length, nor force thy will on those who will no more. Upon a turfy mound, unmoved, he stood, and since he feared not, worthy to be feared. And thus, while anger stirred his soul, began. Thou, that with voice in hand didst rage but now against thine absent chief, behold me here, here, strike thy sword into this naked breast, to stay the war, and flee, if such thy wish. This mutiny devoid of daring deed betrays your coward souls, betrays the youth who tires of victory which gild the arms of an unconquered chief, and yearns for flight. Well, leave me then to battle and to fate. I cast you forth. For every weapon left, fortune shall find a man to wield it well. Shall Magnus in his flight with such a fleet draw nations in his train, and not to me, as my victories bring hosts, to whom shall fall the prize of war accomplished? Who shall reap your laurels scorned, and scatheless join the train that leads my chariot to the sacred hill? While you, despised in age and worn in war, gaze on our triumph from the civic crowd. Think you your dastard flight shall give me pause? If all the rivers that now seek the sea were to withdraw their waters, it would fall by not 1 inch, no more than by their flow it rises now. Have then your efforts given strength to my cause? Not so. The heavenly gods stoop not so low. Fate has no time to judge your lives and deaths. The fortunes of the world follow heroic souls. For the fit few, the many live. And you, who terrified with me the northern and Iberian worlds, would flee when led by Magnus. Strong in arms for Caesar's cause was Labienus. Now that vile deserter, with his chief preferred, wanders o'er land and sea. Nor were your faith 1 whit more firm to me, if, neither side espoused, you ceased from arms. Who leaves me once, though not to fight against me with the foe, joins not my ranks again. Surely the gods smile on these arms, who for so great a war grant me fresh soldiers. From what heavy load fortune relieves me, for the hands which aimed at all to which the world did not suffice, I now disarm, and for myself alone reserve the conflict. Quit ye then my camp, Quirites, Caesar's soldiers now no more, and leave my standards to the grasp of men. Yet some who led this mad revolt I hold, not as their captain now, but as their judge. Lie, traitors! Prone on earth, stretch out the neck and take the avenging blow. And thou, whose strength shall now support me, young and yet untaught, behold the doom, and learn to strike and die. Such were his words of ire, and all the host drew back and trembled at the voice of him they would depose, as though their very swords would from their scabbards leap at his command, themselves unwilling. But he only feared lest hand and blade to satisfy the doom might be denied, till they submitting pledged their lives and swords alike, beyond his hope. To strike and suffer holds in surest thrall the heart inured to guilt, and Caesar kept, by dreadful compact ratified in blood, those whom he feared to lose. He bids them march upon Brundusium, and recalls the ships from soft Calabria's inlets and the point of Lucas, and the Salapinian marsh, where sheltered Cepus nestles at the feet of rich Garganus, jutting from the shore in huge escarpment that divides the waves of Hadria, on each hand his seaward slopes buffeted by the winds, or Auster borne from sweet Apulia, or the sterner blast of Boreas rushing from Dalmatian strands. But Caesar entered trembling Rome unarmed, now taught to serve him in the garb of peace, dictator named, to grant their prayers, forsooth, consul, in honor of the roll of Rome. Then, first of all the names by which we now lie to our masters, men found out the use. For to preserve his right to wield the sword, he mixed the civil axes with his brands, with eagles, fasces, with an empty word clothing his power, and stamped upon the time a worthy designation. For what name could better mark the dread Pharsalian year than Caesar, consul? Now the famous field pretends its ancient ceremonies, calls the tribes in order, and divides the votes in vain solemnity of empty urns. Nor do they heed the portents of the sky. Deaf were the augurs to the thunder roll. The owl flew on the left, yet were the birds propitious sworn. Then was the ancient name degraded first, and monthly consuls, shorn of their rank, are chosen to mark the years. And Trojan Alba's god, since Latium's fall, deserving not, beheld the wonted fires blaze from his altars on the festal night. Then through Apulia's fallows, that her hinds left all untilled, to sluggish weeds a prey, passed Caesar onward, swifter than the fire of heaven or Tigris' dam, until he reached Brundusium's winding ramparts, built of old by Cretan colonists. There icy winds constrained the billows, and his trembling fleet feared for the winter storms, nor dared the main. But Caesar's soul burned at the moments lost for speedy battle, nor could brook delay within the port, indignant that the sea should give safe passage to his routed foe. And thus he stirred his troops in seas unskilled with words of courage. When the winter wind has seized on sky and ocean, firm its hold. But the inconstancy of cloudy spring permits no certain breezes to prevail upon the billows. Straight shall be our course. No winding nooks of coast, but open seas, struck by the northern wind alone we plough. And may he bend the spars, and bear us swift to Grecian cities. Else Pompeius' oars, smiting the billows from Phaeacian's coasts, may catch our flagging sails. Cast loose the ropes from our victorious prows. Too long we waste tempests that blow to bear us to our goal. End of Part 1 of Book 5.